If music is a form of code, then perhaps code is a form of music. This film examines how it is that ones and zeros can make us dance, and how some of the most ambitious electronic music is created at live events by coders.
Hello, I'm Alex. I took the name Algorithm and Rave and put them together. Yeah, once we came up with the name Algorave, it kind of spread around the world, and that's been, I think, in 80 different cities. So Algorave is a movement. It's a way to experience something as abstract as algorithmic music with your whole body, with your mind and your feet and everything in between.
I think it's just cool that there's like a new way of making music that is really quite different from previous forms of music making. It's not like sitting down with a synthesizer, it's not like sitting down with Ableton or what have you. It is something that's new, and I think that's quite exciting.
Live coding has been influenced by radical politics and contemporary art, as well as by developments in computer software and hardware. It emerged gradually from the world of underground experimental music, academic seminars, and sweaty raves. Algorave now shares lineups at festivals such as Unsound, Mutech, and Atonal. One of the major breakthroughs in the production of electronic music came in the 1950s with the development of gigantic supercomputers capable of creating and playing their own music. Alan Turing, the computer scientist and cryptologist, played a crucial role in breaking the Nazis' Enigma code during World War II. But he also helped create the earliest known recording of computer-generated music. Recently, there has been an upsurge in live coders who are part of the Algorave movement. These are the artists who are unravelling electronic music and recreating it from scratch.
Live coding thing is about using the computer as a performance tool and showing what you're doing. I like knowing how it was made. I like going, okay, what's the computer doing? Sure, I press play, but what's happening underneath the hood? And there's always that element of, what if something goes wrong? And then, what if something does something that I don't expect? So there's totally an element of surprise.
I am Paul from 65 Days of Static, and we are in the Village Underground in London because we are doing our decomposition theory project, which is a kind of algorithmically generated AV performance. This project is quite different. We've sort of been through the algorithmic black hole and kind of starting to come out the other side, and this is the result. The first one was much more liquid on stage, I guess. There was like a lot of live algorithms running, and all of that was inspired by live coding. To begin with, we were like, well, how do you bring that to a band? How does that become more than just one person behind a laptop?
I made the software Tidal Cycles because I wanted to make music with code, but also collaborate. I needed something that was very immediate and really focused on being able to make changes within a few seconds. So Tidal Cycles is free. By free, it's not just about being able to download it, but also having the freedom to share it with others. I think that's really important with something like a language for music. Code is about language. If you don't share language, it doesn't have the same meaning, it doesn't change.
When I was making drum and bass in the DAW, I've got one snare sample and I move it on the timeline and I get it in the right position. And then I've got another snare sample and I put it in the timeline in another position. And I have to then perhaps copy this and move it by hand. And it's a very tedious process. And working this way, then I might complete a track. If I'm very careful about it, it might take a week or a month or 6 months to complete a track. But with the right algorithms, then I can have a track as I perform it directly in the code. Like, it was just easy to produce results. And not only easy to produce results, but easy to change the whole structure of the music. And I found that there's a lot of power there that I didn't have when I was moving samples around by hand.
The live coding community which I encountered in Sheffield was a really nice kind of glimpse at something a bit more utopian with music almost. The way that they ignore song structures. What's essential to that form is nothing to do with recording. It's nothing even to do with concrete music. You know, it's to do with the composing in the moment. So when you look at live coding in that respect, it's, I don't know, I find it quite punk, I suppose.
A lot of people have some kind of fear of algorithms. They're concerned that algorithms are having some kind of negative effect on our society. And I think it's too much of a simplification of what algorithms mean. Algorithms are a very broad category of tools. And the problem is not algorithms themselves, but the problem is in specific algorithms and how those specific algorithms are used. Rather than being afraid of algorithms in general, we need to look at the contents of those algorithms and understand what is it they're actually doing. My hope is that through live coding and Algorave, people can see an algorithm on the screen and they start to think, okay, this is the process for how these things come into being.
Algorave organisers offer participants guidelines that set out their principles and procedures, including exposing algorithmic processes, staying wary of institutions, collapsing hierarchies, respect for other communities, and diversity in lineups and audiences.
The barrier to entry is really low. If you want to get started in Algorave, everyone is there to help you with the software. The tools aren't secret. There are no pro tools as such. It is all there for everyone. And that really only comes from collapsing those hierarchies.
My concern around it is that it's not necessarily sustainable. As the scene gains traction and scales up, you have somebody like Alex who's toiling away developing software that's used by thousands of people and not getting any money for it. And it's really hard because you don't want to monetize something that is inherently open source and free, because that's completely contrary to the whole ethos of the scene. But at the same time, it has to be sustainable for the people that are the movers and shakers and that are driving things forward.
In live coding, everything's kind of free as a default. It's not something that I really think about that much. It's just I use free software, and so I share everything I do. I mean, the live coding communities, there's nice communities in Japan and Australia and the UK, but also places in South America which might be classed as sort of developing. And it means that it's accessible to everyone.
Live coding not only challenges what we know about electronic music, but also about what it means to create and consume.
There's this book called Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher, which is astounding, that really quite neatly explains, like, our imaginations are so entirely shaped and reduced by living under and inside of capitalism. The economic forces that we all enjoy music through have influenced what music even is. It's almost impossible to imagine an outside of that. But yeah, live coding, it's really nice that it's sort of trying to weave a way through all of that without getting easily co-opted.
We love repetition.
Algorave generation, we love repetition.
Algorave generation, we love repetition.
As more children are taught coding at school, the question may not be, what does live coding tell us about the future of music? But is there the possibility of a world of open source resources where everyone is free to create and participate?
It's a political act, I think, sort of extreme sharing of everything you're doing. It's sort of, instead of trying to make a single perfect thing, which is a product, a physical thing that you share, you're kind of sharing almost every key press with the world. And each key press has a possibility of doing something new. So it's kind of pushing capitalism to its limits and breaking those limits, I suppose. There's a nice idea of data love where if you share something, it grows in value, much like love.